Oh, Valentine's Day. A time for chocolates, flowers, and heartbreak. Yep, heartbreak, because even in retail media, we've all had those moments that want to make us grab a pint of ice cream and cry it out. In today's special episode, I asked some brand side leaders about the moments that broke their heart in retail media. The answers are a mix of nostalgia and frustration. From Google's move to GA4, to the trust gap created by closed loop attribution and what feels like a wizard behind the curtain situation. And yes, even Walmart gets called out for Luminate, which one leader says has become a costly heartbreaker. So grab your tissues or maybe a notepad and let's unpack these heartbreaks, because love hurts, but retail media hurts different. Let's go. Good morning and welcome to the Retail Media Breakfast Club. I'm your host, Kiri Masters, and every weekday at 6 a.m. Eastern, I bring you candid and real discussions in the world of retail media and marketplaces in just 10 minutes. So bring your own cup of coffee and we'll get smarter about retail media together. Now let's hear from Scott Oshman, VP Digital Commerce at the agency Quickfire and host of the Always Off Brand podcast.
When you change from Google Analytics to GA4, you broke my freaking heart. I knew it was coming. I knew it's supposed to be more accurate. It made sense. But then when it happened, I didn't like it, and it's caused havoc. And I don't believe anything. It's very hard. Even though I think it's going to be good long run, it has just absolutely crushed me.
Why?
Just because all of the data points, it's just the tags, everything is just completely jumbled. It had to be rewired. It had to be reworked. And then the way they're spitting out is just very different. And the events versus what was before, it made the numbers. You had to relearn all the metrics. It's the same names and same things, but you had to really put it in a different context. So you lost all perspective because you've been doing it the same way for 10 years, and now all of a sudden it's just completely different. It integrates so deeply with so many other platforms and so much data points and APIs, and restructuring that was a lot harder than we thought.
Now let's hear from Ben Galvin, Senior Director of Omnichannel, Retail Sales, and E-commerce at Monster Energy.
Yeah, you broke my heart when a retailer switched to a closed loop attribution model without providing transparency to the algorithm. It made it really hard or almost impossible to validate data accuracy and explain performance trends to stakeholders, brands, really anyone, and really creating a trust gap, the way I look at it. You know, there are a lot of brands on the supplier side that want to make sure they're doing what's right for the customers at specific retailers. And in a lot of instances, these retailers have kind of moved to these kind of closed loop attribution models, which that algorithm becomes this cocktail that nobody can figure out. It's the wizard behind the curtain. And in a lot of instances, like, we don't need to know all of the secret sauce that goes into it. But if ultimately you could then open things up where we can manipulate and we can look to evaluate our brands against these types of algorithms, it makes everyone better. The brands, the retailers, and ultimately the consumer purchase behavior. Because when you think about us putting the right brand in front of the consumer at the right time, we can't do that in these kind of closed loop attribution models. And it really creates a little bit of a trust gap for us. And it also creates a lot more work. And if you think about working dollars, we could be putting working dollars in areas that frankly are dead ends. And where if you would ultimately open these things up, we could put more working dollars towards the impact that we all want to have, which is more sales, more impressions, more time on a PDP, all of those types of things.
Now let's hear from Darren Silverman, SVP of Digital Commerce and Media at Petmate.
For me, it is when Walmart transitioned to Luminate. And I may be a unique person in that answer. But for my years of working with Walmart, Retail Link was very democratized. Everybody had access to this great data. It was all equal data. And then moved to Luminate, which I completely understand why Walmart did. There's a way to monetize it. Now makes it a very costly way to access expanded data and creates a different playing field for different suppliers to Walmart, which hasn't generally been the Walmart way for most of my years dealing with them. So that's the one that got to me.
Now let's hear from AJ Patel, SVP of Global Growth at U Beauty.
When Universal Analytics transfers to GA4 was devastating for me. I think, having more than 10 years worth of experience utilizing Universal Analytics and then transitioning to GA4, which is, in my mind, a little bit more clunky of a tool, a little less user-friendly, definitely a little bit more customizable from a dashboarding perspective, but a little less customizable when it comes to data exports and to actually tap into the API. I think that there is a little less clarity in terms of how they measure multi-touch too, whereas in Universal Analytics, there was a little bit more insight because most of the data which you were looking there was last touch, and the report functionality was just far superior in my opinion.
Well, that is it for today. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Retail Media Breakfast Club. We meet here every day at 6 a.m. Eastern. So be sure to subscribe and get your daily dose of insights, trends, and hot takes in the world of retail media and marketplaces.